Today I am going to talk about SAMA radial indicator for measuring psychometric variables. This is my recent finding. I am Dr. Samanthi Konarasinghe, Academic Director of Institute of Mathematics and Management, Sri Lanka and Australia, and I am a researcher of the Western Sydney University, Australia. So before moving to the topic, we'll talk about the types of data and variables. As we all know, data are mainly divided into two parts as quantitative and qualitative based on the variable type. Quantitative variables are again divided into two parts as discrete random variables or continuous random variables. Qualitative variables. Qualitative variables are non-numerical data. So we obtain them as categories. To measure these variables, we use measurement scales. Nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. They are measurement scales. So the quantitative variables are measured by interval or ratio scales, whilst the qualitative variables are measured by nominal or ordinal measurement scales. Qualitative random variables are measured by nominal or ordinal scale. If the random variable yield categories, but these categories are non-comparable, they are in nominal scale. If the categories are comparable, then they are in ordinal scale. It's easy to understand with these examples. If we think about the brands of motor vehicles, we can think about many groups: Isuzu, Mitsubishi, Micro, Toyota. They all are groups or categories, but we can't compare them in any way. Male and female. So they are groups, non-comparable. But when it comes to ordinal scale, if you say, do you like indigenous medicine? Someone would say no, somewhat, yes, that is comparable. Response to this statement: nurses are very kind. Strongly disagree, disagree, neither, agree, strongly agree. And this first example, types of fever, low grade, moderate. So these things are groups, but comparable. If we just think about educational qualifications, up to high school, then the bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, they are categories, comparable categories. So, but they all are qualitative variables. So the qualitative variables are measured either by nominal scale or ordinal scale, whereas the quantitative variables are measured by interval or ratio scales. So what was the problem of my interest to develop this SAMA radial indicator? In various fields of research, we have to collect the qualitative data and we have to collect the psychometric data. We want to measure the attitudes, beliefs of people. So these qualitative variables are not directly observed. They are measured by latent variables or hidden variables. These latent variables are measured through questions or items. The Likert scales are widely applied in measuring these items to obtain the values for psychometric variables. Like Likert scale, maybe it is 3 scale or 5 scale or 7 scale. As we all know, strongly disagree to strongly agree. We may go to 5 scale or 3 scale, or there are various ways. So the variables measured by Likert scale or any other that kind of scale, they are categorical variables. The problem with the categorical variables is they have some restrictions in data analysis, because as they are very unlikely to be normally distributed, parametric statistical methods are not appropriate. For example, Z-test, t-test, ANOVA, multiple regression analysis, those things are not appropriate when the variables are categorical. So we have to move to the non-parametric counterparts. It was really important to develop a method to mitigate the limitations of polytomous rating scales, to avoid misuse of statistics. What is that? As we know, there are two types of statistical techniques, parametric and non-parametric. Power of the test of parametrics are more than the non-parametric counterparts. Therefore, across the world, researchers tend to misuse parametric statistical techniques and come out with useless outcomes. Simply speaking, use the Likert scale in measuring the items, and without checking whether the random variables are normally distributed, simply use the Z-test or ANOVA. That is useless. But what is the solution? If the people really want to use the parametric method, as they are more powerful, I've thought I should develop a technique to mitigate the problems of the polytomous rating scales. The study of Konarasinghe 2023, the reference is given below. It is developing the SAMA radial indicator for measuring qualitative random variables. Go to the article and you can see the complete development. SAMA radial indicator is developed based on the properties of a circle. A circle, we learned them in school. If the angle is measured in the anticlockwise sense, it is in either degrees or radians, arc length S and theta relate to R. In this way, is equal R theta. In this item scale, which looks like a half circle or semicircle, there are three words: totally agree, neutral, and totally disagree. So we request the respondent to put a mark on this semicircle based on his or her belief or as they feels. Then we can take the angle at that point or arc length as our variable. If it is the angle 0 to 180 degrees. If it is the arc length, we can use the formula S equal R theta to obtain the arc length. When developing this indicator, I tried to maintain the properties of a good item scale. We are not confusing the words like somewhat agree, slightly agree, confusing the respondent. This scale doesn't have that sort of words. Also, a good item scale should have a neutral point. Actually speaking, there are many other properties for a good item scale. I tried to satisfy all the properties and develop this item scale. So the Sama radial indicator satisfies all the properties of a good item scale. Most importantly, convert the qualitative random variable into a continuous scale. Interpretation is like this. We don't need to show this to the respondent. It is only for the reference of the researcher. The Sama radial indicator satisfies the properties of a good item scale. The random variable should be either normally distributed or approximately normally distributed theoretically. I tested the model using real life data and found that they are normally distributed. So it makes the outcome of a latent variable a continuous random variable solving a decade-old problem of abusing Likert scale. What is that? As the power of the parametric methods are higher than the non-parametric counterparts, researchers tend to misuse the Likert scale. It is not a problem with the scale, but it is a problem with the researchers. However, that problem is now solved. Anyone can use the Sama radial indicator and use the parametric methods for their data analysis. If you are interested in learning more about the Sama radial indicator, feel free to contact me. My email address is there. Then I am willing to help you. Or you can go through the article, the reference I showed you. You can go through that article to understand how this is being developed and how to use this. I take this opportunity to thank Eurasia Research for inviting me to share my knowledge and experience with you. Thank you all for listening. Have a good day.